Or I mean, if we only had Twitter in the time of Jeff George, he was
Right.
before his time for sure.
All right, so when you talk about how these guys went all in and it came together, like we know what we thought about the so-called super team prior to this. Did Brady and this team show other teams that you can actually make that super team or dream team work in the first year, or can nobody else do what he and they just did?
I guarantee there are teams that are going to think that there's got to be some way to replicate this. That, hey, maybe I think what happened in Washington in 2000 and then Philly, even Denver with Peyton Manning, the thought process was, look, you can't really pull this off quickly. So if somebody comes loose late in his career, an elite level quarterback, and he really only has a year or two window, it's just not worth it trying to engineer this because you mortgage too much of the future, or you tear up too much train track that you've already laid down for 2 and 3 and 4 years out. But I guarantee that because the NFL is the way that it is, we always, the cliche about it being a copycat league, they're particularly in the great migration of quarterbacks of this offseason, there are going to be some franchises that sit there and stare at this and go, okay, well, is there another veteran quarterback out there who we could grab for a year or two and really make this work? The difference is this is Tom Brady, and we can't stop. I feel like I've gotten caught in that trap of being like, well, it's just circumstance and this and that. But after a while, a guy wins 7 Super Bowls in 10 shots, and it is the guy. It's the guy, and that's what all these players said. Bruce Arians said it this morning. We had a good team last year. We just didn't know how to win. We had a good roster, but the guys didn't know how to win football games. And then you bring in a guy like Tom Brady, and everybody sort of either learns from osmosis or Tom Brady straight up telling them, texting them, dragging them to a park in the middle of a pandemic, all the things that he did that maybe necessarily people didn't agree with at the time, including myself, all made a difference at this point. And you can't doubt Brady anymore. Anybody who doubts him at this stage, for one individual to have more Super Bowls than any other franchise in the NFL, the Steelers have 6. The Patriots have 6. He left the Patriots to get the one-up sweetener on Bill Belichick and the Patriots. Yeah, I don't know what you can say about the guy anymore. I mean, superlatives, you can just replace the word superlatives with Brady's. I mean, that's what he is.
Charles Robinson, my guest, I agree with you. We all have to own this. My question is going forward then, when you see what he's doing at 43, how much longer can you see him continuing to compete for Super Bowls?
God, man, I just, we can't spit in the face of genetics and time and the reality that your body can't keep this up forever. We'd be lying if we said that the Tom Brady today is the same guy that he has been throughout his career. Even he said it in the run up to the game. He's like, I remember he talked about Pat Mahomes and all the, wonderful glowing things he was saying about Pat. And he said, I remember when I used to have a whippy arm. Now, he never had an arm like Pat. But over time, we've seen certain parts of Brady's game obviously diminish. He is a guy that I think is a function of what you build around him. The thing is that's crazy about Brady is he imported the 2 pieces with him on that offense that made the biggest difference, Gronk, and he got them to sign Antonio Brown. When Bruce Arians clearly was not on board with it at the beginning of the season, it took some time. But he imports these 2 guys. That's 3 touchdowns in the Super Bowl right there. And then, if Tampa Bay can continue to build the defense the way that it has and keep those players together, bring Antonio Brown back, it sounds like between Antonio Brown, Gronk, everybody wants to be back on this and try to pull the repeat. I think next season they got another shot, but I don't think you just leave this team the way it is. You're going to have to go out, and I think you're still going to have to add something to this team, probably for Tom. And even Bruce kind of said that last night after the game. We're probably going to go try to get a guy. There's going to be somebody we'll add this offseason to try to accentuate this. But
I was going to say, Charles, he was also the guy who pushed so hard for Leonard Fournette, and Fournette's never looked better. I mean, another big-time difference maker. Charles Robinson joining us. So before I let you go, let me ask you your thoughts on the Chiefs. For instance, if you're a player or you're a coach for Kansas City, how are you feeling when you wake up this morning?
I think you realize that Pat Mahomes is I think he's the greatest player in football right now. I mean, right today, okay, not historically, but today he's the greatest player in football. But you now know limitations. And the limitations, frankly, that offensive line, if you don't pour your entire season into depth, making sure that everybody comes back healthy, but you got to add more pieces to that offensive line, you realize you're going to run into a game in the playoffs where Pat Mahomes is going to be running like crazy, throwing balls that are going to hit guys in the face. They're going to drop them. And if other people around Pat Mahomes have imperfect games and the guy's running for his life and his toes hurting and he's a little bit beat up, there's going to be the possibility of laying an egg. So the Chiefs clearly came into this game feeling like they were the better team. They had the better roster. They had the better quarterback. That was all true, but there was an Achilles heel. It was that offensive line. It's not like we didn't talk about it, and it definitely came to bear in the course of this game. And then you ran into a defensive coordinator who, frankly, I think in this game it's going to be interesting. A lot of teams are going to walk away going, thanks, Todd Bowles. Thank you for the blueprint, because now we're going to try to basically replicate what you did against Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, and this is how we're going to try to beat the Chiefs moving forward.
Charles Robinson, my guest. Listen, one last thought. You had a really interesting piece up last week, I thought, about the status of the relationship between Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. How would you describe that situation right now?
I don't think a lot's changed. I mean, either the Cowboys are going to decide that when we extend this guy, we're going to, he's going to get a salary that's going to approach $40 million. We're going to give him a 4-year deal. That's what it is. We've gone to this point, and they feel like he's healthy. I think what's interesting is both sides are looking at each other, and had a chance to talk to Troy Aikman about this last week. This is it. This is it. Either you get it done this offseason, or these two, they won't be together in 2021. So the tag is or 2022. The tag is too big in 2022. You're talking $50 million plus to retain him. That's just completely untenable. They both know if they don't get it done right here, right now, Dak Prescott plays elsewhere in 2022. So the Cowboys are going to cave. They're going to give him the 4-year deal. They're going to give him money that's close to $40 million. They just have to figure out how to restructure the team and the money to make sure that works in a year in 2021 when the cap's going to pull back a little.
So, dude, it's over. Where do you go from here?
For Dak?
No. For you, my man. Charles, what are you going to do now?
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Cowboys. To bed. I'm ready to sleep, and hope that when I wake up, we're all going to be a little closer to normal and what, the NFL world and my job looked like in 2019. And I encourage everyone, please be safe, get vaccinated, do your thing. Let's all pull for each other. And this NFL offseason, we can get ourselves back to where we need to be by the summertime. My girl's a nurse. I'm going to get vaccinated the second it's available to me so I can get out of everybody else's way and make sure I don't infect anybody else. Let's beat this thing together.
Concur. I agree. He's a senior NFL reporter for Yahoo, co-host of the Yahoo Sports NFL podcast. Also a McDonald's French fry expert. We know this. Good friend of the program, Charles Robinson. My man, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Charles. Be good.
Thanks, Rum. Be safe.
Whether you're here to have fun or here to win, we've got you. And we've got your safety in mind, too. So if you need a break, and these days, who doesn't? Come add a new chapter to your memories. Grand Casino. Let your story begin.
The hell was that? I mean, seriously, the hell was that? Did they even show up last night, or did a bunch of randos just throw on Kansas City gear and run out onto the field instead? The weekend's dancers did better on-field work than Kansas City players did. The late Art Modell's plan for exiting a shower thinks that KC's game plan was a disaster. And we know how that ended up, with Modell having a jacked-up scrotum. I don't want to be a totally negative person. In fact, generally, I'm a glass half-full kind of guy. So let me play the biggest highlight of the game for Kansas City. Kansas City's got the ball in Tampa Bay, in territory, their territory. Let me turn it over to the legend, Kevin Harlan, for the call of what happened next.
Second down, 20, 5:03 to go. Someone has run on the field. Some guy with a bra. And now he's not being chased. He's running down the middle of the 40. Arms in the air in a victory salute. He's pulling down his pants. Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants. He's being chased to the 30. He breaks a tackle from a security guard. The 20, down the middle, the 10, the 5. He slides at the 1, and they converge on him at the goal line. Pull up your pants, take off the bra, and be a man. And the players with hands on hips at the other end of the field are looking at him and shaking their head and saying, why, oh why, is this taking place in a Super Bowl?
And Kevin, if you're going to run that far, get into the end zone. Don't slide at the 1. You got to score once you got on the field. Get into the end zone, my man.
Lord, now they're cuffing him, but pull up his drawers, whatever you do.
Westwood won, of course. There you go, Kansas City. That's it. That was your lone highlight if you were Kansas City. The best moment that your offense had was when some pub-hungry loser jumped onto the field, pulled down his pants, and started running around while being chased by security guards. And, of course, Kevin Harlan was going to call that sequence perfectly because that's what he does. Quote, pull up your pants, my man.
Put up your pants, my man.
Pull up your pants, my man.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
But as bad and embarrassing as that idiot was, he was still more successful and more explosive than Kansas City. That loser at least had a plan, and he worked it. I'm not sure Kansas City had a plan at all for anything. Like that last caller said, what were the coaches doing? Where were the adjustments? What happened last night? That offensive line stunk. The coaching stunk. The defense stunk. Everything stunk. In the first half, they had 124 yards of offense and 95 yards of penalties. Absolutely imploded in every single facet of the game. You talk about not being ready for the moment. How was it that the defending Super Bowl champions were a sloppier mess than the team that had not been there in years? Not only was it like they had never been on a big stage before, it was like they had never played a game before. The team that was so sharp, man, so cool, so calm under pressure, completely melted down in every single way possible. And yes, it all started up front. And it was also obvious, right? It was all so obvious, and it was such a point before the game, we probably should have seen it coming. Hell, I did see it coming, but I still never thought that it would have been as bad as it was. I mean, the number one question for Kansas City going into the game was, how was that offensive line, as banged up as it was, going to hold up against Tampa Bay's front seven? And the answer was horribly. Horribly. Way worse than anybody could have ever imagined. A horrific performance. I knew they were going in with a pair of backup tackles. I know what Tampa Bay's pass rush had done to Aaron Rodgers. I just happen to think that 2 weeks, or I thought that 2 weeks would have been enough for them to assemble something that looked like an offensive line. But I was wrong. Completely and totally wrong about that. That was some serious turnstile action up front. That was the ultimate matador offensive line. On the big stage for the entire world to see and for the Bucs to abuse and humiliate. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life from the very start. He was pressured on 29 of 56 dropbacks. That is the most in Super Bowl history. Meanwhile, Brady was clean. Pressured only 4 times on his 30 dropbacks. So KC's offensive line could not do jack, and their defensive line wasn't doing much better. And the numbers get even worse. According to Next Gen Stats, Mahomes, this number is amazing. Mahomes ran for 497 yards before throwing the ball or being sacked. It's a ridiculous stat. Nearly 500 yards just to keep plays alive. Are you kidding? He's supposed to be throwing for 500 yards, not scrambling for them before being sacked. So the only time Mahomes really could get anything at all was what he got for himself. Scrambling and pulling crazy Mahomes-like plays out of his backside. But when he did that, his dimes were either bouncing off his receivers' faces or off their hands. Take this play, for example.
Pressure again. Mahomes, look at this throw. Down deep and almost pulled in by Hill. Would have been a circus catch. And Butker will come out for a long field goal try.
Oh, look at this. We're going to send 2 corners on the edges. No one does that. But guess what? Patrick Mahomes isn't he gets away. Great defense on the back end. Usually that's a touchdown when you get out of something like that.
Ooh, hit him right in the face, guard.
Yes, it did.
Right in my face.
Right in his face. Mahomes escapes the pressure, buys time, somehow unloads that pass only to hit Tyreek Hill right in his face.
Right in my face.
Right in Tyreek's face.
Right in my face.
There's Tyreek going up for the ball. Hits him right in his face.
Right in my face.
You know why Kansas City had to settle for a field goal right there? Because on the play prior, the ball hit him right in his face.
Right in my face.
And that was the story of the game, right?